Can I welcome all members and officers to this meeting of Cabinet, which due to government advice to practice social distancing will be held virtually. The meeting is being recorded and will be available via the Council's website to be viewed as soon as is practicable following the meeting. Most people participating in the meeting will be accessing this meeting from remote locations. Please could everybody ensure that mobile phones are switched off or to silent mode. Members will have received an electronic copy of the agenda. I will ask officers to present a summary of the key points. For the record, the agenda can be viewed on the Council's website. Members and officers will be speaking at various points during the meeting, and those speaking may switch their cameras on at that point. But I would ask that, with the exception of myself as chairperson, at all other times you keep your cameras and microphones switched off, as this will help to minimise any background noise and interference, and to ensure the connections remain as stable as possible. Any members and officers wish to raise a point or question, they should press the hands up icon on the screen hand at the top right-hand side of the Microsoft Teams window, and I'll come to you in the order I receive requests. Please lower your hand once you've finished speaking. The chat button has been disabled for this meeting. Please do not use your microphone until I invite you to do so. Officers from Democratic Services will be supporting the meeting. Where necessary, we'll make those not being used. I would also ask the officers to introduce themselves as and when I invite them to speak during the course of the meeting. I will now proceed to agenda business. And the first item is to receive apologies for absence from members. I have not received any apologies for absence. All members of Cabinet are present and all members of the Corporate Management Board are present. And therefore, we will now receive any declarations of personal or prejudicial interest, if any, from members and officers in accordance with the provision of the Members' Code of Conduct adopted by the authority in September 2008. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No? Then we will now receive for approval the minutes of the last meeting of Cabinet, which was held on the 19th of October 2021. And can I have a mover that they are a true and accurate record of the last meeting, please?
Move the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. And do I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Is everyone in agreement?
Agreed.
Thank you. So we'll now receive the first report on today's agenda, and that is a report on local air quality management and the annual progress report. And this is a report of the Chief Officer for Legal, Regulatory, Human Resources and Corporate Policy. And it will be presented by our Operational Manager for Enterprise and Special Services in our Shared Regulatory Services, Helen Picton. So a warm welcome to Helen, and over to you, please.
Thank you, Leader. Time certainly flies, and it's that time of year again.
that we are considering the annual progress report for air quality. So I was going to introduce you to my colleague Adam Spear, who's actually produced this year's annual progress report. Unfortunately, with perfect timing, Adam's computer has crashed and he's just rung to say that IT are trying to do a very quick rebuild. So it's possible he will join us a little bit later. But if not, then maybe next year we will get to meet Adam. So just to take you through the covering report, and of course the full annual progress report for air quality is included in the packs. So I'll take you through the covering report. So just to start with, obviously the purpose of the report, and that's to seek approval for the 2021 Bridgend County Borough Council Local Air Quality Management Annual Progress Report. And that is based on the air quality monitoring carried out in 2020. So it's the 2021 report, but it's looking at the results of air quality monitoring in 2020. The report requires Cabinet approval in order for it to be submitted as a final version to Welsh Government. The report also provides an update on progress towards the draft air quality action plan for the Park Street air quality management area. So moving on to section 2, air quality obviously affects our communities, local economy and our health in many different ways. And the relevant corporate wellbeing objectives are highlighted for us there in section 2. So supporting a successful, sustainable economy and helping people and communities to be more healthy and resilient. So a little bit about the background to the sort of regulatory framework for air quality monitoring and the progress reports. So under the Environment Act, every local authority has an obligation to regularly review and assess air quality in their areas and to determine whether or not air quality objectives to protect health are likely to be achieved. Where the air quality reviews indicate that the air quality objectives are not being achieved or are not likely to be achieved, then the Act requires local authorities to designate an air quality management area. And the Act ensures that action must be taken at a local level, which is outlined in a specific air quality action plan. So the Air Quality Annual Progress Report, which is included in the packs at Appendix 1, provides details on the data sets for air quality monitoring undertaken in 2020 at different locations across the county borough. 3.3, that just takes us into a little bit more detail on the regulatory framework. And then moving down to section 3.4, the annual progress report satisfies the criteria of the Welsh Government framework, examining ratified data sets for air quality monitoring undertaken in 2020. So moving down to section 4 of the covering report. The 2021 Annual Air Progress Report confirms that in the data looked at that was monitored in 2020, in general, air quality within Bridgend County Borough continues to meet the relevant air quality objectives. Now, 2020, of course, was a very strange year in many ways, dominated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the strict lockdown arrangements that were put in place, and we'll have very fresh in our minds the number of lockdowns that took place over the course of 2020. And one of the effects of that clearly was a reduction in traffic on the roads as a result of the prohibition on non-essential travel and the requirement to work from home wherever possible. Now, as a result of that, and possibly other factors, but certainly this was a big factor at play, across the county borough in 2020, there was an average reduction in the NO2 annual mean concentration of 22% when compared to 2019. So 22% lower nitrogen dioxide in 2020 compared to 2019. However, the current annual progress report confirms that in 2020 air quality continues to be a concern along Park Street in the air quality management area declared there in January 2019. So figure 1 overleaf then is just the outline that hopefully we're familiar with of the actual boundaries of the Park Street air quality management area. And then moving on to section 4.4, and we've got figure 2, which shows exactly where the diffusion tube monitoring locations are along Park Street. And these are sent away for analysis on a monthly basis so that we pick up a complete picture for the year. So as you see in 4.5, it's noted that monitoring undertaken in 2020 at 2 sites along Park Street continue to give cause for concern. And these 2 monitoring sites, these 2 diffusion tubes, are OBC 110 and OBC 123. And these are located on the fronts of houses, which are on the left-hand side of Park Street as you climb the hill. And these demonstrate that annual average levels of NO2 are in exceedance of the air quality objective for nitrogen dioxide, which is set at 40 micrograms per metre cubed. So despite the generally lower levels experienced in the monitoring period, this is still the case that we have these 2 locations on Park Street, which are actually very close together, are in breach. And interestingly, for OBC 110, the level is actually 21.2% lower compared to 2019, and the other location, OBC 123, is 24% lower for NO2 than it was in 2019, but unfortunately still just fails that 40 microgram limit. And then figure 3, I think demonstrates that quite well. We're looking at the 2020 figures, which are shown in the yellow bars for the different monitoring locations along Park Street. And you can see there that OBC 110 and OBC 123, while much lower, are still in breach, unfortunately. So some more news about Park Street. You'll recall that we had quite a detailed process to go through to get an air quality monitoring system, an automated air quality monitoring system installed on Park Street. It took a little while to find the ideal location. That was found, and it has now been installed, getting on for a year ago now, at the Quaker Meeting House on Park Street. And that now monitors 24 hours a day levels of NO2, nitrogen dioxide, and also particulate matter. And it forms part of the air quality network. And that information can be viewed using the link that's provided in the report. And then longer term, the automated monitoring system will allow detailed air quality trends to be examined and assessed. A little bit then about the action plan update for Park Street. So as part of this work, we have been putting together proposals for an air quality action plan for the Park Street air quality management area. And while good progress has been made through the work steering group comprising different BCBC departments and external partners, as with all things, unfortunately, the impacts of COVID-19 and the disruption that caused has had an effect, and there have been delays. So a number of options were looked at by the steering group, and conclusion drawn and supported by the feedback received through the December 2019 public engagement sessions is that the air quality experienced in the AQMA is derived from the nature of traffic flows utilising the network, and occurring and inconsistent traffic flows would appear to be the principal cause of the poor levels of air quality in the air quality management area. So again, you'll recall it was in last year's annual progress report too. A number of proposals put forward for inclusion in the air quality action plan, together with a cost-benefit analysis to rank those into order to find the best possible measures to put in place to deliver air quality improvements in the shortest time possible and in line with the ambitions of Welsh Government and BCBC to reduce the levels to as low as reasonably practicable. So following the decision that was made at last September the 15th Cabinet meeting to undertake detailed transport and air quality assessments within the Park Street AQMA, consultancy work has been underway and has made some progress. So you may recall that what was being looked at in detail here were the mitigation options of implementing a 4-phase junction at the Hale and Nant turning. The second one was denying all access onto St Leonard's Road, and the third one was to optimise the Park Street, Angel Street and Tondy Road junction. Now again, some delays unfortunately through the course of the year, but early transport modelling results indicate that the first of those proposals for the junction changes at Hale and Nant it's unlikely to bring about the desired improvement in air quality as a result of queuing traffic. However, there is a condition of the Persimmon planning permission that a right turning will be introduced into Hale and Nant. Air quality modelling is due to be run on that arrangement, and then detailed modelling on options 2 and 3 set out above for both transport and air quality considerations will follow. And once the outcomes of that work are understood, the Air Quality Action Plan can be compiled, and then it will be brought back to Cabinet for consideration prior to public consultation. 4.16, this outlines the impact of the COVID-19 delays and the fact that the timeline that we had been working to clearly was completely unrealistic as a result of those delays. And we have approached Welsh Government, who have agreed a revised deadline of the 31st of March 2022 for delivering that agreed air quality action plan for Park Street. I can probably then move down to section 8 in the report for financial implications. SRS has an existing budget to complete air quality monitoring across the county borough over the course of the year. The transport and air quality monitoring that I mentioned that's been carried out or is being carried out along Park Street has been supported by corporate contingency funding in the current financial year, and it's progressing within the identified budget for that work. Should any further detailed assessments be required, then this would necessitate discussion with the Section 151 officer as to how that additional work could be funded. And then moving down to section 9 and recommendations. So Cabinet is recommended to firstly note and accept the results of air quality monitoring gathered in 2020, note the progress made in developing the air quality action plan for Park Street, and to agree the finalisation of the 2021 annual progress report for submission as a final version to Welsh Government. And hopefully that has taken you through the covering report, and happy to answer any questions on that.
Thanks very much. That is a comprehensive report, Helen, especially as you've had all of 10 minutes to to prepare for giving that full explanation and overview. I can see that Councillor Baldwin, the Cabinet Member for Communities, would like to ask a question to. So over to you, please, Councillor Baldwin.
Thank you, Leader, and hi, Helen. Thank you for the report. I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things around 4.13, 4.14 and 4.15, which are around the options and, sorry, I'm flipping between Teams and the actual report in ModGov right now. So, yeah, at 4.13, we talk about the three options around implement the four-phase junction, denying all access to St Leonard's Road and optimising the Park Street Tondy Road junction. So I just want to be clear that the implementation of the four-phase junction, even though we have identified that it will not give the desired improvement to air quality work, is still going to be happening, and some more clarification on the fact that while it might not deliver the desired improvements, whether it delivers any improvements to air quality as a result of the queue in traffic. And then some timescales around the denying access to St Leonard's Road or when the modelling is going to happen. I appreciate that I hate to use the word unprecedented year of COVID-19, but we are moving out of those now. I know it's hindered an awful lot of things, but I'm just wondering if we have a plan of when the modelling will happen. And my last aspect of it then is what are we continuing to do to improve the air quality on Park Street if some of the things that we've already tried so far still aren't delivering the necessary results, and what are our next steps? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Baldwin. Helen, please.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. So just to deal with those in turn, those three proposals of mitigation measures, they came out of the results of the work steering group looking at this, and these were put forward as the proposals. The first piece, the Hale and Ant junction, that has been the modelling has been completed very recently, and the preliminary results are that it isn't going to deliver the results that perhaps were anticipated. I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, an expert on road infrastructure or anything like that. So I think if your query was about the sort of ins and outs of road layout, then I would have to defer to an expert to be able to answer that. But certainly this was the purpose of the transport and air quality modelling, was to do just this, to identify, would this work, would it not work? There are still two other measures that are being progressed. So that's the St Leonard's Road and the Park Street, Angel Street junction. As I understand it, the consultants are completing that work as we speak, and I know there's a meeting being arranged for next week, hopefully to get some preliminary results on that. So we are on a tight timeline to get this all agreed and back to Cabinet and agreed, and then out for public consultation. So I'm confident that we will move quickly from here. And the third part of your question about what are we doing, in the I think it's table 2 in the main report, where it sets out the different proposals for inclusion in the air quality action plan. There are obviously some large measures like the ones we've just spoken about, but also a lot of softer measures, things like a public awareness campaign, signage, lots and lots of different things. So we are doing things, and we will hope to do things as part of a package of measures to address the air quality issue along Park Street.
Okay, thank you for that. And so, just being very clear, the right turn in, or the dedicated right turn in at Hale and Ant, is still happening, whether it provides the desired outcomes or not, because it is part of a planning condition of the persimmon development that is happening on Kevin Glass. So as long as that is still happening, but of course some of these things are not going to happen in isolation. So you remove right turn onto St Leonard's Road, and that's automatically going to drive more traffic down to the Hale Nant turn in, or Heol and Nant turn in, I should say, and then there's an immediate right turn then up onto West Road to get back to those areas that would be accessed from St Leonard's Road. Some of the softer outcomes, I wonder whether we've considered appropriate planting, and so around CO2 and carbon sequestration, to make sure whether there's a sort of more natural absorption to improve air quality along that area, and whether that's something that could be considered.
Okay, thanks for that, Councillor Baldwin. That's an interesting point, and I'm sure Helen's got the answers to that. And also, I know we've got colleagues here who are much more expert in the traffic and transport field that perhaps can respond to your point around the planned improvements at Heol and Nant, because they were, I assume, not primarily about air quality. Of course, that would have been a factor, but would have been about road safety and traffic management as a result of the development on the former Ysgol Bryn Castell site. So I will bring our Corporate Director for Communities in on that point, and then we'll go back to Helen for a response around the potential use of planting as a mitigation measure. Janine, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Leader. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Janine Nightingale, the Corporate Director for Communities. I have on the call with me today, Leader John Parsons, who's my Head of Planning, and I've got Rob Morgan as well from our Transport Division. So what I will do is I'll ask John to come forward and explain the particulars of those junctions and what the planning remit is, and hopefully that will explain things much better. So John, over to you, please.
Thank you, Janine. Thank you, Leader. For purposes of the recording, my name is Jonathan Parsons, Group Manager for Planning and Development Services. Going back to the issue, question raised by Cabinet Member Councillor Baldwin in connection with the turn-in lane of Park Street, you're quite right. That's a condition on the planning consent for the Persimmon development. And that's still going ahead. That's still a valid planning condition, and there are no plans or indications that that's not going to go ahead. So that's most definitely a feature that will take place at that junction, and that is in the interests of highway safety as well as air quality, but it's primarily for highway safety reasons. So that's why it's a specific requirement. In terms of the knock-on effects on other junctions as part of the mitigation measures, then we are waiting for the modelling data to give us indications of what the impact's going to be on traffic movements around that area. And I think once we have that data, then we can certainly look at the highway implications. We can certainly look at the any alterations to traffic in that area. But more importantly, we need to translate that with colleagues in other teams and to see whether there will be any demonstrable impact on air quality. It may improve traffic flows, it may improve access, but if it's not going to provide the air quality benefits, then we have to consider that. We also need to look at as well as traffic. We also got to look at pedestrian and active travel movement in the area. We've also got to look at any impacts on bus routes and passenger transport in that area as well. So there's quite a lot sort of resting on the information that we bring back from that modelling exercise that's being carried out by our experts. I'm not quite sure if that answers your question, Councillor, but we will certainly try and get those results done as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah, I can see Councillor Baldwin is nodding. That's a comprehensive answer then from Jonathan. So next we've got Councillor Patel, please.
Thanks, Leader, and thanks, Helen. Actually, Councillor Baldwin's asked most of my questions. I feel he asked for that clarity and that reassurance, which I think you've both provided. So I won't labour the point. So I just like to come and move the report.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Patel. And I just go back to Helen about the possibility of tree or the planting as a response to air quality, please, Helen.
Yes, well, the simple answer is that, you know, all options
Right.
need to be explored. So it's not something I know a great deal about, but we will certainly look into that, and probably will be dropping Councillor Baldwin a line to get a little bit more detail on that, and we can make sure that is all explored.
That's excellent. Thank you very much for your advice, Helen. And the report has been moved. Do I have a seconder for the report, the recommendations?
I'll happily second, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Is everyone in agreement?
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. Aye.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you once again, Helen, and please pass on our best wishes to your colleague. And I'm sure we will see him next year. And I know that you and the team have been very busy on this report. And of course, if there are any action points that need to be progressed within the next 12 months, we will action them, won't we? So wanted to be clear about that. This is simply an annual progress report that looks at air quality across the county borough, and we will be looking to progress those improvements specifically in Park Street, because that is where air quality is of greatest concern, and where we've made that a priority, and we can pick those action points up in the coming months, I'm sure. So thank you once again, Helen, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, and thanks very much to Jonathan as well, Jonathan and Rob for joining us, and it reflects the fact that this is a cross department, a cross directorate and cross council approach that we're taking to air quality. The next report is on the Bridgend Local Development Plan and a proposal on the revised delivery agreement. And that is, of course, a report of our Corporate Director for Communities. So I will hand over to Janine, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Leader. So agenda item 5 today, Cabinet, is our Bridgend Local Development Plan, and it's to revise the delivery agreement that we have in place. So the purpose is to explain to you why we need to revise the delivery agreement, and then hopefully that you will recommend as Cabinet to approve this and agree that we can submit it to Welsh Government. Now, I will just tell you a little bit about the introduction to the LDP, and then I'm going to hand over to the team, to John Parsons, and hopefully he will give you a bit of explanation, Leader, behind the detail of why we need to change the delivery report. So, Cabinet, you will be well acquainted with the fact that we have to produce local development plans in Wales, and an important first part of this is submitting a delivery agreement to Welsh Government. A key part, a key statutory part. And that delivery agreement sets out the timetable for the process, how long we're going to take, and it also sets out, importantly, how we're going to engage with our stakeholders during the production of the plan. When we mean stakeholders, we mean from all backgrounds, and people with disabilities, etc., visually impaired. It's very important that we give everybody equal opportunity to look at that plan. That's very important to us. And what you will see today is there's an equality impact assessment, an EIA, that accompanies this report, and it's in your pack. So our delivery agreement was agreed initially back in June 2018 by the Welsh Government. That was when we were starting to look at amending our LDP. However, we asked for changes to be made to that first time around, because Welsh Government came forward and explained about changes to do with the pandemic that we'd been through. So what Welsh Government asked us to do was to update the technical evidence base that we had in place, and also look at the timetable that we were proposing for consultation. So that meant we could allow access to people during the COVID regulations. You know, normally we'd hold very large publicing exercises, but we had to switch a lot of things online, do one-to-ones, supply different information, and of course it's just a very different way of consulting. Now, this revised delivery agreement was approved by Council back in September last year, and Welsh Government agreed it on the 5th of October 2020. So what we've done subsequently is we've held our public consultation on that new LDP, the replacement plan, for 8 weeks between the 1st of June, 1st of June last year to the 27th of July. And it did incredibly well. We had over 1,200 comments come through, and what it is, we're working on those now. However, it's really clear that our LDP process has been slightly delayed by this pandemic and other legislation that has come forward from Welsh Government in the interim period. So now what we're going to need to do is to extend that process slightly again, in order that we can give some of those other processes and all of the information that's coming from the consultations, that we can give it the due diligence it requires, and that we can create a very detailed consultation report, and importantly so. So what we are asking Cabinet to do in this Cabinet report is to look at the amended delivery timetable now, delivery agreement timetable, and agree that it can be extended so that we can do that detailed work surrounding the LDP. What I will do now, Leader, if you don't mind, is to invite John Parsons to come forward and explain about the reasons, the particular reasons of extending that delivery agreement, and then we're very happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Janine, and yes, welcome back, Jonathan. I didn't welcome you to the earlier report, but I thought you'd staying for this one. So, Jonathan, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Thank you, Janine. I'm going to do a little bit of an old rugby trick. I'm going to pass the ball on this particular one. I've got Gareth Kenny on the call. Gareth is the team leader for development planning, strategic planning. He's authored the report, and he's been very heavily involved in the LDP process since day one. Just a little bit more, add a little bit more to what Janine has said. Yeah, this is a necessary process. This is a technical process. We have to review the delivery agreement every time we go through a complicated stage of the LDP. So it's not something that's unusual. And as part of the consultation, if you like, it's looking at the responses that we've had, and it's adapting the timeline to suit the consultation responses and any issues that have been raised. So it's an organic process. So this is it's not down to any failure on our part. I would like to add as well that we are pretty well advanced in our planning LDP process within the region. We are one of the first authorities in this particular era of LDPs that are actually at this particular stage at the moment. So I won't delay things any longer. I'll hand you over to Gareth, who can talk you through the reports, and then we can deal with any or answer any questions that arise afterwards. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Jonathan, and warm welcome to Gareth too. Over to you, please, Gareth.
Thanks, Leader, and thanks, Jonathan and Janine. If I can just pick up on the points made by Janine in introducing the item. Yeah, we received over 1,200 representations during the deposit plan consultation, which was far in excess than we anticipated. And when approving the plan for consultation, Cabinet made a commitment to all our communities that we would consider and formulate a response to each one of those representations. So it is dealing with that volume of correspondence that it's presented a significant challenge that we're working through, and it's still ongoing. And once it has been complete, we can collate all those responses and present Cabinet with a feedback report. Now, in addition to the representations on the plan, the LDP evidence base needs to be reviewed and refined as a result of various technical issues that have come to light recently. Now, I've summarised those in the bullet points at 4.3 of the report. So just to briefly take you through them, Welsh Government have published Technical Advice Note 15 on development and flood risk, which comes into effect on the 1st of December. And that requires some of the individual proposed site allocations in the plan to be reviewed and some more work to be undertaken in their regard. And also the plan-wide strategic flood consequence assessment to be updated. And because of the detail involved in that process, that is a process that is likely to take a few months to resolve rather than a few weeks. The Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment, which we have completed, is still awaiting sign-off and approval by Welsh Government, without which we can't proceed with submitting the plan. The Strategic Transport Assessment for the whole LDP has been subject to several delays, but the findings are now with us and they need to be fed into the plan so that we can identify the appropriate improvements and also to apportion the related costs. And finally, with regards to the former Ford site, officers have recently engaged with consultants working on behalf of Ford's to investigate future site options, but also to ensure that their work corresponds with the policy coverage in the deposit plan. So the proposed extension to the timetable is summarised in Table 1, and that shows that the main change is to Stage 4, which is the stage we're currently at. And by extending that to next June, it would allow for submission of the deposit plan to Welsh Government next summer. Now, prior to submission, amendments to the deposit draft plan can be made and will be reported to Council to seek approval to submit the plan for independent examination. The final relevant point to raise from the report is that members will be aware that the existing LDP expires this year, which places the Council at risk of challenge from the development industry. It's therefore imperative that the Planning Authority continues to progress with the review of the LDP. However, of equal importance is the need to ensure that the plan is robust and fit for purpose. So the issues raised in the report need to be resolved to reduce the potential for challenge further on in the process, which could set us back years as opposed to months. So the recommendation is at 9.1 of the report, and that's for Cabinet to note and agree the content and recommend that Council approve the revisions to the timetable and to authorise the Group Manager for Planning and Development to submit the revised delivery agreement to Welsh Government.
Thank you very much for that, Gareth. That's very helpful overview of the report, and I will ask Councillor Patel to come in next, please. Councillor Patel.
Oh, hang on. Hiya. Yes, I just first of all I want to move the recommendations in the report, and I think it's really nice to see and the number of residents that have engaged with us. I just think it's really, we were in a pandemic for most of the time, and the fact that we've had the most responses to any consultation that we've ever put out, I just think it's fantastic to see. And I do think that going back to every single person that's taken the time to respond is a positive move, and it's justified. And I feel therefore that I am in full support of the revised timetable, because it is giving those people that took the time to respond to us to give some value and to go back to them with the answers to any of their queries. So yeah, definitely I'm in support of this.
Thank you for that, Councillor Patel. That's a really important point, because not only does it take time to respond, but we also are taking time to actually consider the consultation responses themselves. And I know there's been some invaluable contributions from some of the consultation responses, and we will want to reflect that in our LDP, particularly given the way that the pressures and drivers on our planning system are changing and continue to change as a result of the pandemic. And we want the plan to be future-proof, don't we? As future-proofed as it can be. And that does require us to carefully consider those additional pressures and those trends, some of which were already trends before COVID, but have been accelerated. So the shift to home working, for example, and the greater demand for housing across the county borough. So we do need, it's crucial, I believe, that we reflect that in our plan. And I can see that Councillor Baldwin wants to come in, so I'll bring Councillor Baldwin in next, please.
Leader, and I don't intend to add to anything more that yourself or Councillor Patel has said, but I just intend on seconding the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Baldwin, and I will add, because this is a crucial plan for the county borough, and it is a long-lasting plan. Just the one aspect or strand of work that on its own is enough for us to take some extra time to get it right is the Technical Advice Note 15 on development and flood risk management. That has some profound implications for every local authority and city and town in Wales, and we need to reflect that, don't we, in the LDP. And at this stage, because of the work that is ongoing with Welsh Government, we are not as clear as we'd like to be about what those implications will be yet. And therefore, we have, I believe, we'll have more time to reflect that properly in the LDP, and that work is ongoing, and likewise we need approval from Welsh Government about our Gypsy Traveller accommodation assessment, and that further work on the transport assessment and the Ford site are also in themselves critical strands of work to the overall robustness and long-term value of the LDP. I hope that's fair to say, because I've said it now, so I hope it is. And I'm sure the LDP steering group that it was in place would be supportive of this. The Development Control Committee would be supportive of this approach as well. And finally, just to say that we have a development control member development session coming up very soon, and that will be on Technical Advice Note 15. And there's an opportunity there for any member to attend, not just members of the Development Control Committee, and they can understand better then the implications of that technical advice note and how we're trying to work through those implications for Bridgend County Borough. Okay, well, thank you, Gareth, thank you, Richard, thank you, Jonathan, and we will see you all tomorrow, because of course this will need to go to full council, and full council will need to approve the revisions to the timetable and submit the proposed revised delivery agreement to Welsh Government. Thank you, colleagues. The next report, another report of the Corporate Director for Communities, is on the proposal to purchase the Bridgendtown Centre police station. So, Janine, please.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report, item 6, is, as the Leader has stated, to update Cabinet on the progress made on the potential purchase of the Bridgendtown Centre police station at Cheapside, and also with a view to supporting Bridgend College to relocate their main campus into that town centre. So set out in the report really is the background to this, and I won't really dwell on this because we've had a number of reports over the last couple of months on this, Leader, but just to say, really the move of Bridgend College into the town centre, into a new modern 21st century building, which will be net zero carbon, is a key project within our approved Bridgend Town Centre master plan. It will enormously support the economic growth of the town by increasing footfall of 1,500 students and lecturers in that building alone through the daytime, and it'll provide much needed vibrancy into the Cheapside area of the town centre. And not just that, really, the fact that it is going to be a net zero carbon building, is going to be connected into our district heat network, is very commendable. But if you think about what the benefits will be for not just the students, but for the residents who live around the area, there's going to be lots of benefits for them too. Number one will be because the reuse of the land, because what we will have when the South Wales Police vacate is a empty building on that site. So we will be able to, if we purchase that building, demolish out that structure so a brand new building can be constructed. And that building will have an active frontage at ground floor level. And what the idea is that there are concessionary shops, coffee shops. The college will be having hairdressing and beauty will be there. They will also have performance spaces that the public can come in and use and come and see shows. And that will be daytime as well as evening activity. There's going to be improved public realm around the area. The idea is the college is integrated with piazzas, improving the public realm. We're going to look at active travel, encourage better connected routes through to Bridgend station and connecting out into the hinterlands, because one thing that's very important for the college is that they have a modal shift away from car transportation. And also we do know that when you start regeneration like this and you have colleges and you build these new buildings, you have cluster activities that spring up and around these new buildings because of the amount of students and footfall that's going to be active in the area. So you will get a hub of activity. So we really think this will have an enormous benefit for the start of the master plan to regenerate Bridgend Town Centre. We have spoken in the past about the need for town centres to do far more than just be a retail centre. We know we need people to live there, work there, go to activities, have education, and this is just the start of bringing that education offer into the town centre. Now, back in June, Cabinet, you'll recall the report came authorising officers to progress the acquisition of the station and with South Wales Police, and we had a successful grant bid from Welsh Government in order that we could purchase the police station. The grant was £910,000 from Transforming Towns, Welsh Government scheme, and when we combine this with our BCBC contribution of £390,000, because we had to do some match funding, it'll provide a budget for the project of £1.3 million. Now that budget will be used to purchase the property and then to demolish it out and leave a flat site that will enable the college to come forward on a leased agreement and build the new campus on that site. Now the breakdown of those costs is outlined in paragraph 8.3 of the report. Now the South Wales Police property itself was valued at £650,000 by the district valuer. So it'll be purchased for that amount under the land transfer protocol, and that's an agreed amount. We've now completed all contracts, they're written and they're agreed by all parties, and we are now in a position to exchange contracts and complete the purchase. Now, the contract does include a lease option for the South Wales Police for up to 12 months to allow them to vacate the building in a timely fashion. But I know they won't need 12 months, they'll vacate much quicker than that. But they are constructing their new building down at their headquarters, further on down Cowbridge Road. So this will not impact, though, on Bridgend College's timetable or timescale for developing out their bid. And we'll continue to work with South Wales Police to progress looking at a smaller satellite office for them in Bridgendtown Centre, because they'd really like to have a day-to-day police presence there, Leader. So can I please take you then to recommendation two recommendations out section 9 of the report. The first recommendation, please, is to note the progress with the schemes, and we're delighted with the progress. And the second recommendation, of course, please, is to authorise us to complete the legal documents and transact to acquire that site in accordance with Welsh Government's land transfer protocol. A wonderful start to our town centre master plan. Thank you, Leader.
It is a wonderful start. Thank you. Janine, Councillor Smith, please.
Thanks, Leader, and I'd like to thank Janine and her team for bringing this scheme forward, for the very positive and can-do attitude that the scheme has been operated under. I'd also like to thank the Bridgend College governors for their enthusiasm. I would say 100% enthusiasm for this project. What it will do is bring higher education, probably, and certainly further education presence into the town centre, close to retail, leisure and transport hubs. I also understand that it's planned that there will be public-facing facilities on the ground floor, so probably some sort of coffee shop franchise or something of that sort. And I thought I heard the principal mention something about the possibility of a performing space in there as well. So this is also going to be a cultural hub. In my capacity as cabinet member and in Janine's capacity, we are both invited to be guests at the next meeting of the governing body of the college, and that's on the afternoon, 4:30, I think, of the 9th of December. I happen to know that the risk of us not buying the site was their #1 concern on their risk register, and I feel absolutely confident now that if we accept these recommendations this afternoon, that risk can be turned into green on the traffic light system. So everything seems to be going ahead. I believe the next stage for the governors will be to engage a firm of architects, and that'll be a huge contract, and so we should get some CGIs or artist impressions of what this building in our town centre will look like. So it's a great thing for education in Bridgend. It's a great thing for regeneration in our town centre. It's a great thing for Bridgend as a hub for culture, for retail, for leisure and for transport. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. I can see Councillor Burnett wants to come in. Councillor Burnett, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, this is hugely positive. I've been supportive of this from the start, but as a local member, it's just really a reminder that yes, this is brilliant. It's a town centre regeneration project, but it's in the heart of a residential area as well, and it's remembering the residents that are living nearby and ensuring that they're not impacted negatively by this. And I know that the reactions are going to be the impact on parking and also the impact during the construction process. Residents still remember, you know, there was when the Rue shopping centre, Rue car park was being built, the deep pile construction methods meant the continuous thud. So it'd be nice that during the design and the construction that the close proximity of residents can be remembered, really, because we can't go home. That is our home. It's very different when you live in a town centre environment, really. So yeah, I mean, it's just making sure, I mean, what reassurances can we give that BCBC will do their part in ensuring that the positive side of this has no negative impact on local residents. Thank you, Janine.
Thanks, Councillor Burnett. Janine, please.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Burnett. Whenever we are constructing, we're very mindful of the surrounding residential communities, the surrounding businesses, education providers. So what we try to do is we look at considerate methods of construction, and a lot of off-site construction these days as well, where components are brought, they're put together off-site and brought and clipped together, dare I say, on-site itself. Those are modern methods of construction. With regard to groundworks such as piling, etc., I do agree they are difficult and they can be quite noisy. But what we do as part of our planning submission, we always try and constrain the time scaling of that and the duration, so that if it did occur, it wouldn't occur very early in the morning and we would finish, say, by late afternoon, so it doesn't go into the evening. Inevitably, if it needs to have some piles driven, I'm afraid there may be some disruption, depending on how far the piles have to go in. But what we will ensure we do is a public communication campaign, so people in the local vicinity know exactly what's going on, what time they'd be inconvenienced and for what period of time. So that I think it's worse if you don't know what's going on. I think if you can know and you can plan around it, that would help. With regard to parking, we are trialling currently, aren't we, residence parking permits, or we are progressing with a scheme for parking permits, and that's something we'd like to continue to do throughout the town centre if we can get some momentum behind it. The college are very much about being sustainable moving forward. They're going to promote active travel. That college will come with an amount of parking, but inevitably it won't be enough parking for the students that are there now. But a lot of these students, they're post 16, but they go from 16 to 19. And some a bit further on. Now, currently they come to the site at Cowbridge Road, but obviously we're expecting to have students from a much wider catchment area. So what we will be doing with them is promoting the use of the trains and the buses. One thing we want to do is to reconfigure the way the bus routes end up in and around Cheapside to make sure that that's as accessible as possible. And very importantly, active travel. We've got lots of active travel routes that we're putting in currently that go right past the existing college site and onto the new. So that'll be an important proposition for us. But it's about coming at this from a number of ways. We don't want to cause disruption to the local population. In fact, what we want to do is enhance that end of town for the benefit of them. So hopefully we will tell you more about that anon as the project progresses.
Thank you for that, Janine. Councillor Baldwin, please.
Thank you, Leader. Janine, I wonder if you could, it may be too early to tell, but the height of the building, because that will impact on the type of construction that is going to be used, and therefore may or will impact on the level of noise and disturbance that are caused to the surrounding environment. So do we have an indication of what sort of what height this building will be built to? And recently I went to the Pencoed campus for Bridgend College and saw the fantastic new building that's been built there, and anybody that sees that cannot fail to recognise the difference that high quality learning environment has on students' opportunity to take part in, if you're sitting in a cold old classroom, you may not be learning as well. And they've also got a decent coffee shop that's open till 9 o'clock at night that I was told anybody's welcome to visit as well. So it's a fantastic environment. It's going to have wider benefits to the town centre, increasing footfall. And as you've already said, we are in the process of progressing and better understanding resident permit parking across our wards within the town centre. But the height thing is just a question that I would like to understand better, if you can, at this time.
Janine, please.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I think that's a important question.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. I think at this stage it is slightly premature to talk about height. What we do know is from feasibility studies, depending on the square footage that you need in the building, it has been suggested 4 to 5 stories. It may be that it's a stepped development, so we have maybe higher at the front and then stepped back at the rear, to create some really striking architecture. I know that they're very keen to have a very good looking building, but once again, the important bit is they're commissioning architects now. They look at the square footage and what the occupational need of the building is, and then hopefully we'll be able to have those discussions with them. What we're very keen to do is to make sure that that building fits that landscape. We don't want a building that looks incongruous in the setting in which it is. Now, of course, we've got a shopping centre next door, we've got the Asda supermarket behind, and as you go up Cheapside, you go up a hill, don't you? So we've got different levels there. So they're going to need to take all of that into account in the design. And then, of course, that will influence the method of construction. So I think what we'll probably need to do at this stage is wait until we have a bit more feasibility done. And as soon as we do, I'd be very happy to come back and talk to yourselves in Cabinet about what's being proposed.
Thank you, Janine. And I know that design is going to be high quality design will be at the heart of this project, because it will be a landmark building for the town, but also we will want the very best facilities that we can offer to our learners. And I have to say that the new facilities, the new STEAM Academy at the Pencoed campus are outstanding. They are a world of difference from the facilities that the students were being educated in, and I know that's already had a real impact on the quality of the learning experience, and that has to be our aspiration and our vision for the Cheapside site. And I know it's a vision that the college has, and we share that vision for learning in the 21st century. Councillor Williams, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm very happy to support this report. I believe it represents a moment, actually. We don't get these moments very often, but this is a really important stepping stone to the future sort of regeneration and shaping what Bridgend County Boroughs can look like. It's a good day for Bridgendtown. It's a good day for Bridgend County. and it's a good day for the future generations, because, you know, I mean, we're really going to have a facility here that's going to embed our commitment to provide lifelong learning for all our residents throughout the county borough. So I'm absolutely delighted to be able to support this report this afternoon.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. So we've had a move and a seconder for the recommendations, and we all really look forward to further reports as this project continues to make very good progress. And I know there's a specific piece of work as well, isn't there, with South Wales Police that is certainly making good progress, and we will need to make sure is in place before South Wales Police vacate the property, and that's to identify a alternative police presence in the town centre, and that's why these lease arrangements are important, so that we have that continuity of police presence in the town. And there's a real possibility, I believe, of improving and enhancing the police presence in the town by relocating that front desk for South Wales Police. Thank you very much, Janine, for that report. We now receive a report from the Corporate Director for Communities, another report from the Corporate Director for Communities on our Levelling Up Fund priority projects. Janine, please.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I think this is a very good day for Bridgend overall with these cabinet reports, if I say, because again, this should be a well-received report by Cabinet, hopefully. So the purpose of this report, Cabinet, is to set the context for the UK Government's Levelling Up Fund, to seek Cabinet endorsement on the package of projects we've put together, we're developing for Bridgend, and to utilise our resources here in Bridgend and UK Government resources to put those bids together. So if I may, Leader, I'm just going to give you a little bit of background into the Levelling Up Fund and how we've got to this position. And then what I'd like to do is to take you through the 3 schemes that we're proposing to put together. So the Levelling Up was announced, the Levelling Up Fund, by UK Government in the 2020 spending review last year. It's £4.8 billion up to 2025 across the UK. And you have to deliver within that time frame, within the next 4 years. That's critical. 800 million of that monies is identified for Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And really it's to invest in local infrastructure and capital projects in order to look to level up after the pandemic and other events that we've been through. And now we want to take bids forward to round 2, which is next May 22. And we're allowed to, as in Bridgend, take 3 schemes forward, Leader. You're allowed a scheme for each parliamentary constituency. So we're allowed 1 scheme for Bridgend and 1 scheme for Ogmore, up to a maximum value of £20 million. Now, each scheme has to be accompanied by a 10% match fund from ourselves or others. So if we get up to 20 million, we're going to have to put 2 million into each scheme. And then a 3rd scheme is allowed, borough-wide, a strategic scheme, such as a transport scheme, and it's a much larger bid. It's up to £50 million for your strategic bid. So a couple of very important things. As well as the match funding for each scheme at 10%, they must have a 0 carbon credential running throughout them. That's really important. They've got to contribute to economic development, to creation of employment, to redevelopment of town centres, regeneration, or protecting heritage. So it's a fairly wide remit, but there are some detailed criteria. Now, Bridgend is in category 1. And we've been the highest priority, and we've been allocated £125,000 of capacity funding in October this year, and that's to start the process. if we look at section 4 of the report, Leader, it sets out really what we need to do next. So what we're doing is we're looking at projects that were awarded funding in round 1 of the bidding round, that was last year, and we're galvanising our thoughts on what we should have for our bids, and that's really important. Now, we've had a look at what has been approved, and just to give some examples, in Rhondda Cynon Taf, Mundy Art Centre was granted monies, 5 million to regenerate there. Porth Transport Hub had just over 3 million. And they also had some monies for a transport scheme, 11 million for dualling of the Coed Ely bypass. And then another example of funding in Powys, the Montgomery Canal restoration had 15 million, and Brecon and Radnorshire Town Centre Investment had monies as well. So that just gives a flavour of the type of schemes that are getting investment. Now, we've discussed our ideal schemes with the MPs for Bridgend and Ogmore, and we have had support, and now we've got 6 months to work up the proposals in order that we submit really high quality bids. So I'll take you to 4.9 of the report, Leader and Cabinet, and I'll discuss the first bid that we're preparing for the Bridgend constituency, and that surrounds the Grand Pavilion in Porthcawl. Now, the Luff prospectus makes it very clear that they will support cultural investment and heritage to maintain heritage assets. Now, there was a project developed for Porthcawl Pavilion by Arwen to enhance and to redevelop this Grade 2 listed building. The building has some significant condition issues, unfortunately, because of the concrete structure. And there was a public consultation into this feasibility study, and it was taken to what we call a REBA 2 design stage. But what we realise is that in order to bring this building up to a commercially viable entity for 21st century conferencing and shows, and to have all of the amenities you would expect in a facility of this type, this heritage facility, there's a number of things that we think need to be done at the facility. So not just addressing the condition issues, but looking at function space on the first floor to support any events, looking at a new rooftop cafe overlooking the sea views, new studio space and ancillary facilities, increased welfare spaces, a change in place facility so we can have equality of access, business incubation units and some new offices. And of course, protecting the heritage of this Grade 2 listed building. Now, that work comes around between 13 to 15 million pounds, and there is no way that we could progress this scheme in any other way, really, other than applying to the Levelling Up Fund. But we also need a 10% match fund to contribute towards this. So what we are planning to do is to work with RN and to look for a lottery heritage bid to support and put the two bids together in tandem. Now, should that bid not be successful, Leader, what we will have to do, we will have to look to address the structural issues with the Grand Pavilion, but we're hoping that looking back on bids that have happened in round 1, this is just the type of facility that they like to fund. We know there's a regional impact with this building. People travel far and wide to come to enjoy the entertainment in this area. They enjoy it as an amenity if you're a resident of Porthcawl, and it's a beautiful heritage building we would like to protect. So that's the scheme that we'd like to put forward for the Bridgend constituency. The second scheme that we have, which is set out in the Cabinet report from paragraph 4.20 onwards, is in the Ogmore constituency. And what we're calling this is an enterprise development project. Now, the Levelling Up Fund states that economic regeneration and commercial units would be well supported in key locations. Now, what we have is a shortage of small micro enterprise units in Bridgend. There's very high demand. We're very successful at letting those spaces. So what we know is this does dampen the opportunities for new startup businesses across the region. So what we plan to do is to look at increasing the available employment spaces in the borough, supporting economic development and supporting job creation. Now, we have responded to this in the past, and we've worked to construct facilities such as Green Shoots project with Sony through the Rural Development Project, and we've also done some enterprise hubs in Pyle that have been very successful through ERDF. But we want to look at new enterprise units in our valleys communities. We want to look in the Llinvi Valley, in the Garw Valley, and in the Ogmore Valley in particular, because supporting startups and new businesses is a key to this. We will provide that on top of the unit, as well as creating the units. The other thing we want to do is to help these businesses access the supply chain locally as well. So not just new buildings, assistance to the businesses to start up is a supply chain. And also an important thing is to offer support for new business startups to develop resilience in the early years, because we know that a very high proportion of businesses fail in the early years because of the cost of startup itself. So we want to try, as well as providing the facilities, to provide all that business support and assistance. And this is going to create a wide range of jobs right across the sector, from construction to the end user, to the supply chains. It'll have more than an impact on just the people who are starting the new businesses. So we think the bid for this is around about circa 10 million. It's about 3.5 million per set of units that we'd like to apply for. We also need some resource funding internally in order that we can progress these schemes to design and feasibility. And we're going to look within our envelope within the Communities Directorate to see if we can afford that. And of course, the other thing is that we also need to find the 10% match fund within BCBC as well for that scheme. So those are the two schemes for the constituency. And then the third scheme is the Strategic Transport Scheme Leader. Now, we are looking at the Prisk Railway Bridge scheme as our very large transformational strategic scheme. And we know we've discussed this. In fact, we're consulting on this scheme now because it's been a long-standing infrastructure project in our Bridgend LDP, our current and our ongoing LDP, and we are undertaking public consultation. So what that is essentially is to rebuild that Prisk Bridge to allow two-way traffic, to close the level crossing eventually, and then to replace that with new active travel bridge for pedestrians and cyclists. But this project really has regional significance, because without this project, we can't look at increasing the frequency of services on the Valley Line. You can't do that when you have an active level crossing in place. It also will look to reduce traffic congestion through the village of Pencode and the hinterlands. It will look to reduce air pollution. It'll remove the moratorium on development north of the borough by allowing the traffic to move. For certain, it'll improve safety, because level crossings are known throughout the UK to have a difficulty safety element. And what we'd also like to do when the level crossing is removed is look at public realm enhancements for the town of Pencode. So that's the third scheme. Now, currently, that scheme, we're looking in the region of 18 to 20 million. The scheme will need to be designed out. There's £1 million from the Metro funding available to design out that scheme. And once the consultation finishes, it'll be 8 months of design before we take into account people's views, and then we'll look at what that scheme is like. So what is very clear, there's an awful lot to do on these schemes in the next 6 months to get them ready to have some really robust bids that will go in for the levelling up funding. So if I may, Leader, may I take you to section 9, which are the recommendations. Note the overview, endorse the projects, please, to delegate authority to myself to look at a capacity grant to procure the support, the professional support that we need to progress these bids, look at how we will fund the bid for the Enterprise Centre, and then to come back and receive a further report on the final package of projects before they are submitted next May to the Levelling Up Fund. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much for that, Janine. And a big thank you to the team for the work that the teams for the huge amount of work that's been undertaken in a very short period of time on reaching the stage we're at. And also, I'm pleased to report that we have met with both the Member of Parliament for the Ogmore constituency, parliamentary constituency, and the Member of Parliament for the Bridgend constituency. We've met with the MP for Bridgend twice. We're about to meet with the MP for the Ogmore constituency second time, but both members of Parliament were very supportive of the projects that we are proposing, because of the wider impact and the benefit that all three projects will bring to the whole of the county borough, as well as to the towns and places and valleys in which they are located. And indeed, we would say that there are regional and even national benefits, for example, from the Prisk Bridge project. Councillor Smith, please.
Thanks, Leader. I'll just lower my hand before I do anything. Yeah, it goes without saying, I think, that these projects are all first-class projects and worthy of support, and very welcome. Just like to say a couple of words in particular about the pen code one, because I think what Janine said is right. This is a truly strategic one, and it would be very, very parochial to think this is just something for pen code, and also parochial to say this is just something for a particular constituency, even parochial to say is something for the county of Bridgend, because it affects the whole of South Wales. Economists know that productivity is low in Wales, and productivity is low in Wales mainly because connectivity is low. And there's a direct correlation between connectivity and productivity. And anything which improves the South Wales main line is going to affect Bridgend and communities all the way along it. So this pen code one, I think, is really important. I can give you the benefit of some historic viewpoint on this, because I'm old enough to remember a time in the 1950s when hardly any of us had family motor cars. You had to be the local doctor or or a solicitor or something like that to possess a motor car. And I can remember going by train, which was steam hauled from Pyle Station to Pencoed Station to meet friends of my father and mother, and I always enjoy going to this particular address because their back garden backed on to the main line, and I could play there and watch steam trains roaring down the main line. And it was also a bit of fun to go and a little wander over a bit and have a look at the level crossing and the Ford Prefects and the Ford Anglias and the Morris Oxfords and the Jensen Jowetts queuing up to cross the main line. So that's a 1950s scene. Fast forward to 2021 and we've got the same scene, apart from the fact that the trains are faster and the cars are more aerodynamic as well. So we really need to bring that pen code crossing into the 21st century, and the way to do it is to replace it with an active travel flyover and improve the nearby road bridge. So really, we've got to do this, and I would hope that the UK government will realise that there's some benefit from this, and not just support it through levelling up, but also support it in other ways. We could, for example, get some consequential in Wales, because we're not really going to benefit from HS2. What we do need is the electrification of that line, and we've checked previously on Bridgend, and we know that that bridge is future-proof. So
It is, yeah.
when we get a government that's got some sense and decides to electrify the South Wales main line to Swansea and beyond, then that bridge will still be incredibly important to us.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Baldwin, please.
Thank you, Leader. And I've been lucky enough to be part of the business consultation event that happened on Saturday morning. It did stay dry enough to walk around the businesses in Pencoed, and 2 of the consultation events that have already happened. And I appreciate that we are looking at anything between 18 to 20 million for this strategic transport bid. However, some of the aspects that have been raised through the consultation process so far have been around the wider infrastructure improvements that will be required, not just for the closing of the level crossing and the active travel route over and the increased size of the Prisk Bridge. How do we plan to make sure that we're capturing all of those aspects from this consultation event to make sure that we are maximising the income from the grant funding to improve the wider environment of Pencoed?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Yeah, very good question, and critical, really. There's no point having an active travel link over a railway unless it's linked to active travel links that go further into the community. So absolutely. So a key part of this will be to look at the routes that we are planning as part of the funding from Welsh Government we have. So we definitely will be doing that. But an important part of this actual project itself is that the connectivity, it works, of course, moving forward. If we do need to do new signalised junctions or improve some of the road infrastructure around the area that goes alongside the bridge, then of course that will be included and designed it into the bid. It is the plan at this stage, because it's not just the bridge itself, it's the roads either side and further into the hinterland. And then an important bit is making sure the active travel is right. Then we've got all the signage, the road signage, etc., that needs to go. And the other thing for us is when we remove that level crossing from the area, we don't just want to leave a dead end road that leads to nowhere on either side of the level crossing. We need to look at what public realm improvements we can carry out in those areas. Again, the Pencoed town side, we're looking at whether we can create a town hall square there surrounding the monument that's there, the war memorial. And then the other side, dare I say, maybe it could be suitable for some parking, etc. That's something we need to look at. I mean, an important part of this scheme overall is the park and ride, of course, and the car park that we have there in Pencoed is a rather large car park. And one of the things we want to look to do is see if we can improve the look and feel of that as well, and get some ULEV charging facilities into it, so we can have electric car charging, etc. Because people may choose to park and literally ride to work. So yes, we will look at the global piece, the suggestions that come through, and construct our bid accordingly from that.
Thank you for that, Janine. And of course, one of the potential benefits is possibly lifting the moratorium, but of course that would be predicated not simply on this, but wider infrastructure improvements.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's the possibility of lifting the moratorium, but that will, as Councillor Baldwin has asked and you've responded, is part of that wider set of infrastructure improvements that will need to be delivered, and that's one of the benefits of the consultation, because
Absolutely.
we haven't got all the answers, and we need to identify some of the consequences of such a major infrastructure project, because it is the single biggest transport project that we have ever embarked on as Bridgend County Borough Council, and the impacts are going to be major, and we need to understand those fully, try to, and make sure that we maximise the benefit from the scheme. I'm also really pleased and proud that we are making this commitment to the Grand Pavilion in Porthcawl. It is a much loved institution in the town. It is also vital to the visitor economy of not just the resort but the whole county borough, and a tourism economy that is growing by the month. And we want to maximise the opportunities there too, as well as protecting the building for many more generations to come. And of course, we'll be looking to, as we will with the plans for the level crossing and for the enterprise development project, we will also be looking to partners as well, because these aren't projects that will be delivered alone through UK government support. Support the UK government will be critical, but we'll also have to work very closely with Welsh Government and other organisations that can potentially support these projects, like the Heritage Lottery Fund at the Grand Pavilion, recognising the national significance of that building. So the recommendations have been moved. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'm happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. And is everyone in agreement with those recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you very much, Janine. You'll be very pleased to hear that you can have a glass of water now and pause and take breath. And
thank you, Leader.
That's the last report from you today. So thank you. And I'll now invite our Interim Chief Officer for Finance, Performance and Change to present a report on proposed amendments to the financial procedure rules within the council's constitution. So over to you, please, Jill.
Thank you, Leader. And for the purposes of the recording, it's Jill Lewis, Interim Chief Officer Finance, Performance and Change. The report you have in front of you is fairly self-explanatory. It's to seek approval from Cabinet for the proposed amendments to the Council's financial procedure rules that is all set out, as you will know, within the Council's constitution. The financial procedure rules have not been revised since 2017, even though there have been changes during that period which were appropriate if anything else had changed. But we've done a thorough review of the financial procedure rules this year. The rules have been reviewed by officers, including those from finance, procurement, legal and internal audit, and a number of changes have been made to bring them up to date. You will see at 4.1 some of those changes updated wording to reflect current practice, updates in respect of the capital strategy and capital programme approvals, approvals in respect of leases, changes to VAT and the construction industry scheme have been incorporated, as have the new arrangements for social security contributions as amended by IR35. We've also taken the opportunity to update them in respect of data protection requirements under the GDPR scheme, and referenced our council's senior fraud investigator, who was appointed earlier this year, and also processes to be followed for asset disposals. So all those are set out as track changes so that you can see them at Appendix 1, and a report will be taken to Council tomorrow to amend the Constitution to incorporate the revisions to those financial procedure rules. There are no financial implications, so I take you, Leader, to the recommendations at 9.
Thanks very much for that. Jill, Deputy Leader, please.
I am here. My mouse wasn't working. Caught it now. Yeah. Thank you, Leader. As Jill has pointed out, this is merely a tidying up exercise. There's no material changes to the way that the authority deals with this financial matters. So I'm happy to move the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Deputy Leader. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Baldwin. And is everyone in agreement with those recommendations, please?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you, colleagues. Councillor Patel, please.
Thanks, Leader, and thanks, Jill. I just wanted some reassurance around how this document and these rules fit into what we've previously discussed, just for context, really. So I understand that I don't know if that made sense, but I understand that it's part of a wider picture.
Well, it's all part, it's all part of the medium-term financial strategy and the budget strategy that feeds into the corporate plan. So, for instance, the fees and charges policy that you approved last month would obviously feed into this, as would any of the other changes. So, was there anything in particular that you were driving at, Councillor Patel?
I think the fees and charges were one of the things, and then also in relation to 3.3.5, I want to say.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find it now. Under the scheme, it was delegated to you to sign off on anything prior any underspends. I think that's right.
Okay, there's I think I know what you're driving at. There's a reserves and balances protocol that's agreed by council as part of the NTFS, and that sets out our processes in respect of reserves. But obviously it is very, very clear in statute that the 151 officer is expected to set a balanced budget and sign off accounts. So there is an officer responsibility in terms of the balanced budget and the financial reserves and balances, as well as political input. So it is a balance. As you know, we have a plethora of reports that come to Cabinet. They're very open and transparent in terms of budget monitoring, in terms of treasury management and reserves, and the earmarked reserves are very clearly set out. So there, you know, it doesn't take away political input, it's a balance between the statutory responsibilities and political initiatives.
Great,
Does that
thanks.
answer the
Yeah,
question?
It does, and I'm pleased to read that we're going to take certain reports to council as well as cabinet. And I think this is what this protocol does as well. And I think that's a positive move, because it means that other members will get oversight if they don't attend cabinet meetings. I know it's open to everybody, but attendance isn't great.
And just to remind that all the budget monitoring and treasury management are scrutinised by COSC, and they also go to the Governance and Audit Committee. So there is quite wide input into those.
And for those watching the recording, what is COSC?
Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Patel, thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
I'm sure everyone understands that acronym, Councillor Patel. But it's a good point, and you've answered it very well, Jill, because it's a reminder that there's a whole set of different policies and procedures that is difficult to have to read them individually, as you often have to do. Because they never are applied individually. They are always applied as part of a wider suite of policies. And as you have described, of course, there are quarterly reports to Cabinet on our finances, on the quarterly revenue, and then quarterly reports on capital as well. And if there are any changes in terms of reserves that is not in the plan, which is agreed by full council, then those changes have to be agreed, they have to be reported, and they are published. It's a very transparent and open system, and the information is all there as a matter of public record. But it's important that is explained, and I know it's frequently explained by the interim chief finance officer to other colleagues, and thank you for studying the rules and proposed procedural changes, as you always do, Councillor Patel. Much appreciated. So moved and seconded, all agreed. So thank you, Jill, and we'll now move on to the next cabinet report, and that is on a proposal around the real living wage, and it's a report that will be presented by the Chief Officer for Legal, Regulatory, Human Resources and Corporate Policies. I hope I've got your title right, Kelly. It's a long title, so over to you, please, Kelly.
Thank you, Leader. That did sound about right. For the purposes of the recording, I'm Kelly Watson, Chief Officer, Legal and Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy. Cabinet members, I'm here today to introduce a report on the progress taken on the implementation of the real living wage, and to seek your approval to apply to become a real living wage accredited employer. Members, you will be aware that by law, all employers have to pay the national living wage to all employees over the age of 23 and the national minimum wage to employees under 23. The current rate is £8.91 per hour as of April 2021. The Real Living Wage Foundation is a campaign for employees to be paid at a rate which is based on what is needed to live, and the rate is calculated independently, taking into account wider factors than those used to set the national living wage. The Real Living Wage Foundation announces its annual rate in November of each year. In November 2020, the rate was set at £9.50 per hour, and we heard yesterday that the rate set from November 2021 is going to be £9.90 per hour. Accredited organisations should implement the rise as soon as possible and no longer than 6 months. Whilst BCBC is not yet an accredited organisation, it has committed to paying the real living wage to its own employees for the last 2 years. This has been achieved with the agreement of the trade unions and by uplifting grades 1 and 2 in anticipation of a national pay award. Since April 2021, employees on grades 1 and 2 have been paid £9.50 per hour. Without the uplift, they would have remained on their substantive rates of £9.25 and £9.45, pending the pay award. In Wales, Canol Cymru works in partnership with the Real Living Wage Foundation to support employers with accreditation and work towards becoming real living wage employers. Officers in BCBC have met Canol Cymru and established a pathway to accreditation. The initial phase is to ensure our own employees are paid the real living wage, and given the commitment over the last 2 years, this position can be formalised and agreed moving forward. The more difficult aspect of accreditation relates to the requirements for our commissioned and procured services. Canol Cymru have confirmed there is no expectation that these services will pay the real living wage before BCBC applies for accreditation. An action plan will be developed to set out the steps we will take to encourage our contractors and suppliers to pay the real living wage. As we cannot make it a mandatory requirement of the tender, we will incorporate fair work provisions into all our tender specifications moving forward. We will also encourage our contractors and suppliers to adopt fair working practices, and this is also in accordance with our commitments under the Ethical Employment and Supply Chains Code of Practice. As part of our recently approved corporate procurement strategy, we are committed to increasing community benefits delivered by our suppliers. This includes making the community benefit offer of the successful tenders a contractual commitment and contract managing delivery, raising awareness of community benefits internally to address any barriers, to provide employment training and work placement opportunities throughout our tendered and commissioned services. Whilst we would encourage current suppliers to become real living wage employers, this is not a condition we could mandate partway through a contract. Canol Cymru do not expect organisations to vary our contractual terms, and it is not a requirement of accreditation. To address real living wage now procured and commissioned services, we will do it via the social value conditions when our contracts are renewed or when new services are procured or commissioned. Cabinet, if you're in agreement to applying for accreditation, officers will continue to work with Canol Cymru on the application process. An application and action plan will be submitted, and we will work to resolve any queries. Following accreditation, BCBC can use the accredited logo and will be registered on the Real Living Wage website. The accreditation will be subject to annual monitoring and we will update Cabinet on an annual basis. Members, of paragraph 8, you have some financial implications set out. To date, the cost of implementing the real living wage for BCBC staff has not been significant, as the NJC award has mostly kept pace with the increases. As you know, the Council outsources a number of its services and therefore does not pay these staff directly. Given the number of externally commissioned services the Council has in place, implementing across the board will have significant financial implications, and these will be addressed as and when we procure new services. Cabinet, I therefore take you to the recommendations in paragraph 9. I'd ask you to note the content of the report and, if in agreement, to delegate authority to myself to make the application for the real living wage accreditation. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much, Kelly. Deputy Leader, please.
Right, yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, this again, I believe, is another moment for Bridgend County Borough. I think it sets a very clear signal of the direction we wish to take the county borough in, as well as being, very well educated county borough. We also want it to be a high paid county borough as well. So this sets a very good precedent for other companies in the county borough to follow. I'm very pleased that we've got this report before us this afternoon. So happy to move the report.
Thank you, Deputy Leader. Councillor Burnett is next, please.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'm really happy to second the report. This will have a huge positive impact on the Social Services Directorate in particular, where we rely very heavily on those who are paid the least amount of money per hour, and yet the pandemic has proven that we are totally dependent on these individuals, and that the roles that they provide for us, and they need to be paid enough to have a mortgage, feed their families, go on holiday, and this is a really positive step to ensure that we get there, and to ensure that our suppliers, the procurement process is that we state our point of view very clearly, that we expect staff working for us and on behalf of us to be paid a real living wage.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Patel, please.
Thanks, Leader. I just want to say I'm really pleased for this report to come forward today. And I would personally like to thank the Deputy Leader. He's taken a really active role in pursuing this, and so I'm really pleased that he's managed to get this so far. And I'd also like to thank the Labour Group, because they've constantly been raising this at group meetings, and therefore I'd like to thank them as well, and hope that they take note.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. And thank you to the Deputy Leader and to Kelly for the work that has been undertaken on this initiative. For me, this is about fairness, it's about equity, it's about the work that is undertaken by people who are often being paid low amounts, and as Councillor Burnett has described, they are paid the least, but they undertake some of the most important roles in our county borough. But this has also, certainly since the pandemic, also become about being able to continue to deliver essential frontline services, and we are struggling right across the board in commissioned and directly provided services to recruit and retain workers to undertake those roles. And if we do not improve the terms and conditions in some of those sectors, we will be unable to deliver some of our essential services. So we've already reached the point where we are not able to deliver as many care packages as we would like to, as we need to, because we are not recruiting and retaining staff in the numbers that we need to. And part of that is about how we pay those workers, and that does need to change, and that is why it's so important that today we are making that commitment to those workers in whatever sector they are delivering a public service on our behalf, and we need to make sure they're being treated properly, and we need to make sure that they are paid properly. Otherwise, we are not going to have a workforce in the future to deliver our services. So the recommendations have been moved and seconded. Is everyone in agreement? I think everyone is in agreement, but I had better check for the record.
Agreed.
Thank you. The next report is a report on information reports for noting, and it's a report of the Chief Officer for Legal, Regulatory, Human Resources and Corporate Policy. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Leader. I think you've skipped one on the agenda.
I have skipped one on the agenda. You're quite right. I'm glad you're more attentive to the agenda than I am. So we will not receive reports for noting. We will first of all receive a report on the proposed representation on outside bodies and joint committees and the Community Health Council. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Leader. As you said, the purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet's approval of the appointment of a replacement member to sit on the Cwmtaf Morgannwg Community Health Council. A vacancy has arisen for one member representative to sit on the council. It is proposed that members are appointed for a term of 1 year, except where earlier revocation of the appointment is appropriate. And all appointments are made on the assumption that appointees represent Bridgend County Borough Council. Should an appointee cease to be a County Borough Councillor, they will cease to represent the authority and are expected to relinquish their post. Bridgend Council are entitled to nominate 3 elected members to sit on the council. One of his vacancy has arisen, and it is proposed that Councillor Matthew Voisey will fill the vacancy. Councillors Amanda Williams and Gareth Howells will remain as our other 2 representatives. Leader, I therefore take you to the recommendation at paragraph 9 and ask you to confirm that you're going to appoint Councillor Matthew Voisey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. I'm happy to move the recommendation at 9.1. Do we have a second?
I'll second,
please?
yeah, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Patel. Is everyone in agreement with the recommendation, please?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. And the next report is a further report from the Chief Officer, Legal and Regulatory Services, HR and Corporate Policy, and it's on reports for noting. Kelly, please.
Thank you, Leader. Just an administrative report to inform you of information reports that have been published since your last meeting. The detail is in paragraph 4.1, and you can see there's one report that has been published, and that relates to the Ombudsman's annual letter 2020 to 2021, and the details of that are appended to your report. I would just ask Cabinet to note the publication of those documents. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Kelly. And it is noteworthy that the vast majority of complaints that were made to the Ombudsman did not result in an intervention by the Ombudsman. Can I have someone move that we note the report, please?
Move that we note the report.
And a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Deputy Leader Councillor Patel. That takes us to urgent items. There are no urgent items that have been raised with me. And therefore, we will move on to item 13 on the agenda, and that is a proposal to exclude the public from the final part of the meeting, as the reports include exempt information as defined by the Local Government Act 1972 and as amended by the Local Government Order of 2007. Kelly, please.
Thank Thank you, Leader. Cabinet members will be aware that there is a general presumption of local government that the business is transacted openly and transparently. However, there are some circumstances where decisions can be made in closed sessions if the information is considered to be exempt information in accordance with the statutory provisions. The following reports you have before you fall within those definitions, and therefore it's a matter for members to apply the public interest test and to determine whether at this stage the information should remain confidential, and whether that confidentiality outweighs the public interest in dealing with things openly. As I've advised previously, it applies today. It doesn't mean that on future occasions these matters can then be aired in public when it's appropriate to do so. Leader, I'd therefore ask you to apply the public interest test and determine whether you're going to go into closed session.
Thank you, Kelly. Well, I've read both reports, and it's certainly my view that there is information that is exempt because it is a commercially sensitive information. So I certainly believe that the public interest test has been applied, and I propose that the public is excluded, making the point, as I do every time when I support this, that at a point in the future when it is possible, these reports and the outcome of the decisions, the proposed recommendations, will be available to the public and will be made public at a subsequent stage. Is everyone in agreement with that, please?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. So first of all,